where free people refuse to live in a world of hopelessness and darkness. We will have a different future, a brighter future, rooted in democracy and principle, hope and light, of decency and dignity, of freedom and possibilities. For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power.
Well, we just got a little closer to nuclear annihilation as Bumblin Biden calls for regime change in Russia. In this video, we're going to look at how badly Biden humiliated himself in Europe. We're going to look at a series of tortured retractions that had to subsequently be issued. And stick with me at the very end of this video when I'll reveal precisely why the only regime change that may be happening anytime soon is Biden's own. You're not gonna want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Stevie with you. Great to be with you. As always, I'm your daily fake news antidote. So come on in to your PATRIOT Professor's Den. We're helping to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Before we begin here, let me ask you, what are you willing to do in order to affect change in our nation? Well, at Patriot Switch, over 2 million patriots all across the country are making the switch to make sure that their purchases support patriotic companies. And the really cool thing here is that it involves nothing outside your ordinary routine or the items that you already purchased, but the quality is second to none, and the pricing is often comparable, if not better in most cases, especially for a better quality product. You can make the switch today and start voting with your dollars to support companies that promote freedom. Learn more by visiting Patriot Switch in the description below. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. If you're a fan of World War III, and you're really hoping that the senility of Bumblin Biden would push us closer to that brink, you had a really good weekend. Our Pampers-in-Chief president crossed the line over the weekend explicitly and unambiguously calling for regime change in Russia, which of course can be interpreted as an act of war. Speaking in Warsaw, Poland over the weekend, Biden said in no uncertain terms that Russian President Vladimir Putin, quote, cannot remain in power. He actually went a step further, imploring heaven itself to remove Putin from power. And that was the goal of a unified world, a world unified against this totally unjustified, unprovoked invasion of a sovereign nation. And no, I'm not talking about Iraq or Serbia or Libya. No, I'm talking about Ukraine. And then, as if it were actually possible to make things worse, to actually escalate the rhetoric any further, Bumblin Biden insinuated that American troops were going to be sent into Ukraine. Take a look.
And you're going to see when you're there, and some of you have been there, you're going to see women, young people standing in the middle in front of a damn tank, just saying, I'm not leaving. I'm holding my ground. They're incredible.
Yep, when you get there, you're going to see the brave, innocent, impeccable Ukrainians standing in front of Russian tanks, refusing to move, just like Tiananmen Square. It's going to be amazing. And of course, once again, the dolts in D.C. did what they do best. They lied to us. Administration officials actually scrambled to tell us that Bumblin Biden did not say that American troops were being sent to Ukraine, regardless of what jumbled jabber ends up being mumbled from Biden's oatmeal-covered lips. And of course, they had to radically backtrack on Biden's call for regime change, claiming that Biden instead was saying, just let that hit you. Can you imagine having your job to be to parse the slurred words of Biden? I mean, what a job. You're going to love this. This is Secretary of State Tony Blinken, okay, who is himself an utter disaster. But Blinken said, quote, I think the president, the White House, made the point last night that, quite simply, President Putin cannot be empowered to wage war or engage in aggression against Ukraine or anyone else. Yeah, sure, that's what he said. That's what we heard. For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power outside of Russia. Yeah, that's it. This man cannot remain in power to enforce his power on people outside of his perfectly legitimate power, which is inside the Russian Federation. We never said anything other than that. Now, of course, the problem here is that it's too late. The entire world, literally the whole world, most especially Russia, heard explicitly what Sleepy Joe said. There's no walking this one back. Russia doesn't have our legacy media that does the beck and call, the Biden administration gaslighting. They don't have a Don Lemon or Rachel Maddow to run interference for Sleepy Joe. Russia heard exactly what Biden said, and it was an international relations disaster. If you thought ending this war would be hard before this weekend, things just got a whole lot worse. Tulsi Gabbard, former Democratic presidential candidate and who is herself a veteran, understood exactly what Biden said. She tweeted out, "Here we go again, another regime change war. The target, nuclear-armed Russia. Regime change is a true intent of Biden's administration's policies, which will have catastrophic consequences for Americans and for the world." Now, if you thought Afghanistan was a disaster, or Lebanon, or Syria, or even Iraq, wait till you see what happens with a nuclear superpower. Let's just say it's not going to be fun. Moreover, Biden's comments were, simply put, idiotic. Somebody needs to remind him that Putin right now has an approval rating over 70%. The vast majority of Russians support this war. There's not going to be any regime change anytime soon, not in Russia. However, in America, according to the latest NBC poll, Biden's polling at his lowest ever right now. This guy is literally living in a parallel reality. And we got to wonder how many members of his administration have a foot in that diluted parallel world as well. You see, what we have to understand here is that Biden's reckless rhetoric reveals the fact that the dolts in D.C. have become absolutely unhinged. Everything that woke Washington wanted to happen to Russia has not happened. The ruble was supposed to collapse. It didn't. It has largely recovered its losses. It has bounced back. We've talked in other videos as to why that is. Russia was supposed to suffer from runaway inflation. It hasn't. We are, but not Russia. The entire world economy was supposed to isolate Russia with sanctions. They have not. In fact, most of the non-Western world is ignoring the woke warriors in Washington. Their call to isolate Russia isn't being heeded by 80% of the world's population. And our woke elites are becoming absolutely exasperated over it. They're deranged. They've been humiliated on the world stage, and their rhetoric is becoming increasingly unhinged. And that's what we saw over the weekend. Make absolutely no mistake on that. And that despair in D.C. is indeed leading us closer to World War III. Media critic Glenn Greenwald had a great piece over the weekend on how Biden's remarks underscore the dangers of the United States fighting a proxy war with Russia via Ukraine. It's very clear that the United States is the ventriloquist in all of this, and Ukraine is the dummy. We're arming Ukraine to the teeth. We're sending billions upon billions of dollars into this war-torn nation. We're doing everything we possibly can to actually prolong this war. In the words of one analyst, it is now the United States policy to make Russia bleed, to turn Ukraine into a hornet's nest of insurgents that wear Russia down by attrition. And Greenwald's point here is that when we're doing this with a nuclear power without equal, namely Russia, when we are technically a co-belligerent in a war effort against a major nuclear-armed nation, we've got to understand the risks that we're assuming in this. As we found out this weekend, it does not take a formal declaration of war to provoke hostilities between the two major powers. It could be a mistake. It could be a simple blunder. One blunder, one misspoken word, one missile going off course could literally instigate World War III. This is what the Biden administration is doing right now. Everything the branded administration should be doing right now, everything should be for the purpose of de-escalation, not escalation. But with neocons like Victoria Nuland in the Biden administration, it appears that every day we're going to just keep escalating this crisis. And when all is said and done, the ultimate reason for that is that the woke warriors in Washington, the dolts in D.C., are ultimately not about defending the United States. Our borders can be illegally trampled on all day long. They don't give a shit. What you've got to understand here is that our woke warriors, both the woke left as well as the neocon woke right, Our woke warriors in Washington are not about defending the United States. They are ultimately all about defending a world order. They are all ultimately committed to defending a post-World War II liberal globalist order that Russia and China are currently smashing and destroying. This is why neocons like Fox News' Sean Insanity sound literally no different from the nonsense you hear from Bumblin Biden himself. They have forsaken their constitutional oaths to protect and defend the United States, and instead they are all about defending a neoliberal world order. And that, too, is why the legacy media is all for this. The corporatist globalist media is all for defending the very globalism they daily mediate. Make no mistake, World War III is a very real possibility here. The incompetence of the globalist ideology that's animating this administration, as well as war hawk neocons, has simply lost touch with reality. Globalism and the globalist order are dead. And I pray that cooler heads prevail in all this, and that Biden will soon find out that the only regime change that's happening anytime soon is going to be his own. Now, before you go, you'll definitely want to check out my latest video I just uploaded on how the liberal media is actually admitting that the age of globalism is indeed over. You're not going to want to miss that. So make sure to click on the link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.